They say the cursed don't dream, but when I fell asleep on the alpha's shoulder during the mating ceremony, I dreamed of fire, blood, and a throne built on bones. When I woke, the entire pack was staring at me like I was the monster they'd always believed me to be. And maybe they were right. Before we get deep into the story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story, because tomorrow I have another beautiful story to share with you, and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now, let's get into the story. The scent of frost-kissed pine and burning cedar filled the ceremonial grounds, sharp and biting in the cold autumn night. Dozens of iron braziers lined the perimeter of the ancient stone circle, their flames casting flickering shadows across the faces of the Iron Peak pack as they moved about in their finest ceremonial garments, rich furs and leather for the men, flowing gowns in deep jewel tones for the women, their breath misting in the chill air. I stood at the very edge of the gathering, half hidden behind a gnarled birch tree, watching as pack members took their places around the ceremonial fire. My ice-blue eyes remained fixed on the ground, my pale hands trembling as they clutched a tarnished silver serving tray. The annual mating ceremony was the most sacred event in our calendar, a night when potential mates were presented before the Alpha and his council, when futures were decided and bonds were formed that would last lifetimes. And I wasn't supposed to be here at all.
Jean.
Stop cowering and bring the ceremonial cups. The sharp hiss came from Mira, the head servant, her weathered face tight with disapproval as she gestured impatiently toward the stone altar where Elder Thane was arranging ritual objects with deliberate precision. I reluctantly stepped out from behind the tree, my movements careful and measured, as if by making myself smaller I could somehow become invisible. I tugged self-consciously at the rough-spun white dress I wore, simple, shapeless, marking me clearly as a servant. Unlike the other women my age, whose gowns were embroidered with intricate patterns that told the stories of their family's achievements, mine was plain and faded, borrowed from the communal stores reserved for those with no kin to provide for them. "I shouldn't be here," I whispered, taking the heavy tray from Myra's calloused hands. My voice was barely audible over the crackling of the ceremonial fires. "Everyone knows I'm not." "You're 23, Jean." Myra's expression didn't soften, but her tone carried a weariness that might have been pity. "All unmated females your age must attend. It's pack law, even for you." Pack law. The words that had governed my entire existence. The words that had marked me as different, as cursed, from the moment of my birth. In a community where strength and dominance were everything, where the ability to shift into your wolf form was the very definition of belonging, I was the aberration. The frostborn curse, they called me. The girl with eyes like winter ice and skin too pale to be natural, as if the warmth of life itself couldn't quite reach me. "They only want me here to serve," I said quietly, my fingers carefully arranging the ceremonial cups on the altar as I'd been taught during 3 sleepless days of preparation. "No one expects the Alpha to even see me, let alone." "Never speak of what the Alpha might or might not do," Mira interrupted sharply, her eyes darting nervously toward the assembled pack. "And for mercy's sake, keep that pendant hidden." My hand instinctively moved to my throat, where my mother's silver crescent moon pendant hung beneath the neckline of my dress, the only thing I had left of her. She had died when I was born, they said. Died bringing the cursed child into the world. My father had vanished into the Whispering Woods shortly after, driven mad by grief and the omen of my unnatural appearance, leaving behind only whispers and dark legends. At 23, I had learned to make myself invisible, to serve without being seen, to exist in the thin spaces between pack life where the cursed were tolerated but never welcomed. I had learned that survival meant keeping my head down, my voice silent, my strange abilities, the ones I didn't understand and couldn't control, buried deep where no one could see them. "I'm sorry," I murmured, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. For existing, perhaps. For being a burden. For the shame I brought simply by drawing breath. Before Mira could respond, a hush fell over the gathering like a physical weight. Alpha Ronin Stormclaw had emerged from the Great Lodge. Even from a distance, his presence was overwhelming, a force of nature that commanded every eye, every breath, every heartbeat in the circle. Tall and powerfully built, with dark hair pulled back from a face that looked as if it had been carved from granite and tempered in fire, he moved with the fluid, predatory grace of a born warrior. His beard was neatly trimmed, his ceremonial leathers adorned with the symbols of his bloodline, and his eyes, those intense golden eyes that seemed to see straight through flesh and bone to the truth beneath, surveyed the gathering with the cold assessment of a predator evaluating his territory. At 31, he had led the Iron Peak Pack for 8 years, since the sudden and mysterious death of his father had thrust him into power before his time. Unlike his father, who had been mated young and ruled with an iron fist, Ronin Stormclaw had never chosen a mate. Year after year, the most beautiful and accomplished women in our pack and from neighboring territories had been presented to him. And year after year, he had declined them all, his expression never changing, his reasons never explained. Some whispered he was waiting for a political alliance strong enough to expand our territory. Others claimed he was incapable of love, his heart as cold and unyielding as the mountain stone. A few brave souls suggested something darker, that there was a curse on the Alpha bloodline, that he couldn't take a mate, that something in his blood was broken. I understood broken things. Perhaps that was why, despite my fear, I sometimes found my eyes drawn to him during pack gatherings, watching from the shadows as he bore the weight of leadership alone. "It's starting," Mira hissed, nudging me sharply toward the back of the gathering. "Stay in the shadows. Pour the ceremonial wine when called. Don't look at anyone directly. Don't speak unless spoken to. And for the love of the moon, don't draw attention to yourself." I nodded mutely, grateful that she expected so little of me. As she moved away to join the other servants, I pressed myself further into the darkness at the circle's edge, clutching the wine pitcher so tightly my knuckles went white. Elder Thane, the pack's spiritual leader, a man whose silver hair and ancient eyes held secrets I didn't want to know, raised a staff toward the waning moon above us. On this sacred night, when the moon's light reveals what is hidden, we gather to honor the most ancient of our traditions. His voice carried across the ceremonial grounds, resonant with power and authority. Tonight, we present our finest daughters, that our Alpha might find among them a worthy mate, a Luna to stand beside him and ensure the strength of our bloodline for generations to come. One by one, the eligible women stepped forward into the firelight. I recognized most of them. Celine, daughter of the lead warrior, her auburn hair gleaming like burnished copper. The twins, Kara and Mina, known throughout the territory for their hunting prowess. Alara, whose family controlled the richest hunting grounds in our territory. And then there was Nyx Ravenshade. She stepped into the circle like she owned it, like she owned the very air we all breathed. Raven black hair cascaded down her back in glossy waves, and her amber eyes, wolf eyes, even in human form, held the kind of confidence that came from knowing, absolutely knowing, that she was the obvious choice. As the pack's beta female and daughter of the former beta who had served Ronin's father, Nyx had been positioning herself for this moment her entire life. She was beautiful, powerful, ambitious, and utterly certain of her destiny. Her gaze swept over the assembled pack, and for just a moment, those amber eyes found mine in the shadows. The smile that curved her lips wasn't kind. It was the smile of a predator that had spotted prey but couldn't be bothered to chase something so insignificant. A reminder that I existed so far beneath her that I wasn't even worth her contempt. I looked away quickly, my heart hammering against my ribs. My job tonight was simple. Pour the ceremonial wine when called, stay invisible, survive until dawn. I had been awake for 3 days preparing for this ceremony, cleaning, arranging, ensuring every detail was perfect. They had denied me meals as punishment for some minor infraction I could barely remember, and my body was running on nothing but fear and the stubborn, animal will to endure one more night in a pack that had never wanted me. My vision blurred slightly at the edges. My hands trembled. My legs felt weak, unreliable. Just a few more hours, I told myself. Just stay awake. Stay invisible. Stay alive. I didn't know that in less than an hour, I would commit the ultimate transgression. I didn't know that falling asleep would seal my fate, or shatter the pack's carefully constructed lies forever. I didn't know that the monster they'd always believed me to be was about to wake up. And when she did, the entire pack would finally have a reason to be afraid. Chapter 1. The Frostborn Curse. I woke before dawn to the sound of boots on frozen ground and the sharp crack of Myra's voice cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. Up, Frostborn. The ceremony preparations won't complete themselves. I didn't bother reminding her that my name was Jean. To most of the Iron Peak pack, I had never been anything more than the curse that walked among them, the girl whose ice-blue eyes marked her as unnatural, whose pale skin refused to tan even in the height of summer, as if warmth itself rejected me. The servants' quarters were cramped and cold, little more than a storage room converted into sleeping space for those with nowhere else to go. I pulled myself from the thin bedroll, my muscles aching from 3 days of relentless preparation work. Sleep had been a luxury I couldn't afford, not when every torch needed positioning, every ceremonial cup needed polishing, every detail needed to be perfect for tonight's mating ceremony. Breakfast is for those who completed their tasks yesterday, Mira announced as I stepped into the communal area where other servants were breaking their fast with warm bread and honey. Since you failed to properly clean the ceremonial stones, you'll work through meals until the ceremony begins. I hadn't failed. I'd scrubbed those stones until my hands bled, but Mira always found something wrong when it came to me. Arguing would only make it worse, so I simply nodded and took the bucket of wash water she thrust into my hands. As I worked, scrubbing the already clean lodge floors, pack members passed by with their casual cruelties polished smooth by years of practice. Don't let the Frostborn touch your cup. Who knows what curse might transfer? Keep your distance. Her mother died screaming, you know. Some say the madness runs in the blood. Those eyes, like a corpse staring up from winter ice. Unnatural. I kept my head down, made myself small and visible. Survival meant not reacting, not defending, not proving them right about the monster they believed me to be. Sometimes, late at night when exhaustion finally claimed me, I would hear an echo of something else, a woman's voice, warm and fierce, singing words I could almost but never quite remember. Little Frostflower, don't you fear the cold. Your difference is your strength, when you're finally bold. My mother's lullaby. Or perhaps just a dream my desperate mind had conjured to fill the void where a mother's love should have been. By the time the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of blood and amber, my hands were raw, my stomach hollow, and my vision swimming with exhaustion. I was hauling ceremonial wine to the stone circle when Mira found me one final time. "You'll serve tonight," she said, her expression unreadable. "The ceremony demands all unmated females of age attend, even." She trailed off, but I heard the unspoken words clearly enough. "Even you." My heart sank. Serving meant visibility. Visibility meant exposure. And exposure, during the most sacred night of the Pack's calendar, meant coming face to face with Nyx Ravenshade, the beta female who had perfected the art of reminding me exactly how far beneath her I existed. Nyx, who would be chosen as Luna tonight. Nyx, who had once held my face underwater in the Pack's drinking stream until I nearly drowned, just to prove I couldn't fight back. Nyx, who smiled while she destroyed me. Understood, I whispered, because what else could I say? Just survive until dawn, I told myself as I had every day for 23 years. Stay invisible. Stay alive. But tonight, the moon had other plans. Chapter 2. The Alpha's Shadow. The ceremonial grounds transformed as twilight descended, hundreds of torches igniting in a carefully choreographed sequence that turned the ancient stone circle into a cathedral of firelight. I stood at the very edge of the gathering, wine pitcher clutched in trembling hands, trying to make myself part of the shadows. Then he arrived, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath. Alpha Ronin Stormclaw moved through the crowd like a force of nature made flesh, tall and powerfully built, his dark hair pulled back to reveal a face that looked carved from mountain stone. A thick beard framed a jaw that had never known softness, and scars marked his exposed arms like a map of battles survived. But it was his eyes that commanded absolute attention, molten gold, burning with an intensity that made lesser wolves look away. He wore ceremonial leathers marked with the sigils of his bloodline, and every step radiated the kind of authority that didn't need to be announced. At 31, he had ruled the Iron Peak Pack for 8 years, and in that time, no one had dared question his dominance. The candidate mates assembled near the altar, each more stunning than the last. But Nyx Ravenshade stood at their center, like a dark star around which all others orbited. Her raven hair cascaded in perfect waves down her back, and her amber eyes, wolf eyes even in human form, gleamed with absolute certainty. She wore deep crimson silk that clung to every curve, a declaration of conquest before the battle had even begun. Her gaze found me as I poured ceremonial wine into the waiting cups, and her smile was a blade wrapped in beauty. "Careful, Frostborn," she murmured as I passed. "We wouldn't want you to contaminate the sacred ritual with your curse." I said nothing, kept pouring, kept my eyes down. But my hands shook harder. Elder Thane began the ancient invocations, his voice rising and falling in the old language as pack members joined in ritual songs that predated memory. The candidates stepped forward one by one, presenting themselves to the Alpha with practiced grace. I moved mechanically through my duties, refilling cups, clearing plates, existing in the thin spaces between notice. But something was wrong. My vision blurred at the edges, the torchlight swimming into halos of fire. 3 days without sleep. 2 days without food. My body was reaching the end of what stubborn will could sustain. I stumbled, caught myself against a stone pillar. Just a little longer. Stay upright. Stay invisible. The Alpha rose from his position to approach the ceremonial throne, an ancient seat of carved granite positioned at the circle's heart. I tried to move away, to retreat further into shadow, but my legs wouldn't obey. The world tilted dangerously. And then he was there, so close I could smell cedar and smoke and something wild that made every instinct I possessed scream both danger and sanctuary. He moved to sit, and my body, finally reaching the limits of endurance, simply gave up. I collapsed, not toward the ground, but against him, my shoulder hitting his as he settled into the throne. For one terrible, eternal moment, I felt the solid warmth of him, the absolute wrongness of my cursed form touching the Alpha during the most sacred moment of the ceremony. Horror flooded through me. I tried to move, to pull away, to apologize, but my muscles had stopped responding. Darkness crept into the edges of my vision, and distantly I heard the collective gasp of the entire pack. This was it. This was how I died. Executed for the unforgivable transgression of defiling the mating ceremony with my cursed presence. Then I felt it, his arm, heavy and warm, coming around my shoulders, not pushing me away, holding me in place. The world went utterly, devastatingly silent. Alpha Ronin Stormclaw's voice, deep and absolute, echoed across the ceremonial grounds. This one, she is mine. And as consciousness finally fled, I heard Nyx Ravenshade's scream of rage follow me down into darkness. Chapter 3. The Beta's Rage. I woke to firelight and silk sheets, textures so foreign to my existence that for a moment I thought I had died and somehow found myself in a place where cursed things were allowed comfort. Then memory crashed through me like ice water, and terror followed close behind. The mating ceremony, the Alpha's throne, my body giving out against him, his arm around my shoulders, his voice, this one, she is mine. I sat up too quickly, the room spinning. These weren't the servant quarters. This was a private chamber, massive, decorated with furs and weapons and the unmistakable markers of power. The Alpha's chambers. You're awake. His voice came from the shadows near the fire, and I flinched so hard I nearly fell from the bed. Alpha Ronin Stormclaw sat in a high-backed chair, those golden eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. How do you feel? Terrified, I whispered honestly, because lying to an alpha was suicide. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Whatever punishment you've decided, I'll accept it. Just please don't hurt the other servants for my failure. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps. Or disappointment. You think I brought you here to punish you? You claimed me during the ceremony. My voice cracked. To humiliate me before you have me executed? I understand. I defiled this sacred ritual. The mate claim is binding, Jean. He leaned forward, firelight catching on the scars across his knuckles. Once spoken before the pack, it cannot be undone. You are under my protection now. No one can harm you without answering to me. I stared at him, unable to process words that made no sense. But I'm cursed. I'm nothing. Why would you? The door exploded inward. Nyx Ravenshade stood in the doorway, flanked by 4 of her most loyal supporters, her beautiful face twisted with rage barely contained by the thin veneer of protocol. Her amber eyes blazed as they fixed on me, and I instinctively shrank back against the headboard. You would choose the Frostborn curse over me? Her voice was deadly silk wrapped around broken glass. Over the pack's honor? Over everything we've built. Alpha Ronin rose with predatory grace, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I have chosen. If you wish to challenge my decision, Nyx Ravenshade, then challenge me directly. If you dare. The threat hung in the air between them. Absolute, unambiguous. Nyx was powerful, but she wasn't suicidal. Her jaw clenched, tendons standing out in her neck as fury warred with survival instinct. Finally, she lowered her gaze in a mockery of submission. Of course, Alpha. Your word is law. Then her eyes found mine, and her smile was pure venom. But remember, little curse, the Alpha may protect you during ceremonies and in his chambers, but he cannot watch you every moment of every day. Accidents happen, especially to those who don't belong. She swept out, her supporters following like shadows, and the door closed with deliberate softness that was somehow more threatening than slamming. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think past the certainty that Nyx had just promised my death. She won't touch you, Ronan said, but doubt flickered in his eyes. He knew what I knew, that Nyx was patient, cunning, and had just declared war. Hours later, a servant I vaguely recognized brought wine and bread. "Thought you might be hungry," she said with a sympathetic smile. "After everything." I reached for the cup gratefully, brought it to my lips, and froze. Something was wrong. Beneath the wine's fruity sweetness was something else. Something bitter and wrong that I shouldn't be able to detect, but somehow did. The cup shattered as Ronan struck it from my hands, wine spreading across the floor like blood. He grabbed the servant by the throat. "Who gave you this?"
Who?
Her confession came in terrified gasps. Names.
Plans.
A conspiracy larger than one jealous beta. After she was dragged away, Ronan turned to me, his expression unreadable. "There's something I need to tell you about why I chose you. But first, you need to tell me." He paused, studying my face with unsettling intensity. "Have you ever felt like you could sense the pack bond?" My heart stopped.
Because yes.
Yes, I had. But admitting it felt like admitting to something forbidden and dangerous. Something that would give them an even better reason to want me dead. Chapter 4. The Awakening. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Sometimes I feel them. Pack members. Like a pull in my chest, right before they enter a room. Or I know when someone's angry or afraid even when they're smiling. I thought everyone could do it, but I stopped, seeing the way Ronan's expression had shifted from curiosity to something that looked almost like relief. "What's wrong with me?" "Nothing is wrong with you." He moved closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. "Jean, have you ever heard of Bonseers?" I shook my head. 300 years ago, there was a bloodline with the ability to see and manipulate the pack bond itself. The invisible threads that connect alpha to pack, mate to mate, wolf to wolf. They could strengthen bonds, break them, even sever an alpha's connection to their own wolves. His golden eyes held mine. They were called Bonseers, and they were hunted to extinction. The room tilted. "That's not. I can't be." "You sense the poison in the wine. Not through smell or taste, but through the intent behind it. The corruption in the person who brought it." He spoke with quiet certainty that terrified me more than rage would have.
"You're a Bonseer, Jean."
Probably the first to survive to adulthood in 3 centuries.
"No."
I stood abruptly, panic clawing at my throat. "I'm not special. I'm cursed. I'm nothing. I'm—" "Those 2 things are often the same," he interrupted gently. "Power that threatens existing hierarchies is always labeled as curse or corruption. It's easier to destroy what you fear than to understand it. If I'm what you say, then keeping me alive is suicide." My voice cracked. "The moment the pack knows, they'll tear me apart. Then we train you." His tone left no room for argument. "Before they figure it out, you learn to control what you are." The training began that night. Ronan taught me to meditate, to reach for the invisible threads he claimed connected every wolf in the pack. At first, I felt nothing but my own racing heartbeat. Then, gradually, like stars emerging at dusk, I began to sense them. Faint, gossamer connections pulsing with life and emotion. 3 days later, I could sense a dozen wolves in the lodge below. Their fear, their curiosity, their hatred. "This is pointless," I said during our evening session, exhaustion and fear making me reckless. "Even if I master this, what then? I'm still the Frostborn curse. I'm still the girl no one wants. You can't protect me forever, and the moment you look away, Nyx will." "I will not let her touch you," Ronan growled, and something in his tone ignited my own buried rage. "Why?" The word exploded from me, 23 years of suppressed fury rising like a tidal wave. "Why do you care what happens to a cursed servant? What game are you playing? What do you? Power erupted from my chest like a shockwave. Every wolf in the building dropped to their knees, guards, servants, warriors, all pulled down by an invisible force they couldn't resist. I felt their shock, their terror, their overwhelming compulsion to submit rippling through the bonds I'd unconsciously grabbed and yanked. I released them immediately, horrified, but the damage was done. Ronan remained standing, but barely. His eyes were wide with something between fear and wonder. That, he breathed, was extraordinary.
That was horrifying.
I backed away, my hands shaking. I could have hurt them. I could have. You could have killed them, he finished quietly. But you didn't. You pulled back the moment you realized what you'd done. That's control, Jean. Raw and untrained, but it's there. Footsteps pounded toward us. Shouts echoed through the lodge. And somewhere in the chaos, I felt Nyx's fury spike so violently it made my teeth ache. She knew now. They all knew. I wasn't just cursed. I was dangerous. The messenger arrived at dawn, bloodied and terrified, refusing to speak to anyone but me. With trembling hands, I unfolded the note he carried. The words were written in handwriting I didn't recognize, but they detonated my world more thoroughly than any power I possessed. Your mother's death was no accident. Your father still lives. Trust no one, especially not the Alpha, who claims you. A friend in shadows. I looked up at Ronan, the note clutched in my hand, and saw secrets swimming in those golden eyes. Tell me the truth, I whispered. All of it.
Now.
Chapter 5. Blood Memories. I held the blood-stained note between us like evidence at a trial. Tell me what you know about my parents. Now. Ronan's jaw tightened, his golden eyes showing something I'd never seen there before, shame.
Sit down, Jean.
This isn't. I've been lied to my entire life. My voice was steel wrapped in ice. You don't get to protect me from the truth now. He exhaled slowly, the sound of a man accepting an inevitable reckoning. My father and the Elder Council were involved in your mother's death. She discovered something she wasn't supposed to know, that they were using dark magic to artificially force pack bonds, to manufacture loyalty instead of earning it. It gave them absolute control, but it was corrupting the very foundation of what makes us wolves. The room spun. You're lying. I wish I were. He moved toward me, then stopped, reading the warning in my posture. Your mother was a bond seer, Jean. She sensed the corruption in the bonds, saw what my father was doing. She confronted him. She threatened to expose everything. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. So they killed her.
No.
I shook my head violently. She died in childbirth. Everyone said. Everyone lied. His words landed like blows. The story was easier to believe than the truth. A cursed child killing her mother. It explained why you were different, why you had to be kept isolated. The perfect cover for murder. Rage and grief warred in my chest, making it hard to breathe. I don't believe you. You're trying to manipulate me to... Let me show you. He extended his hand. Bondseers can share memories through the pack bond. If you're willing to trust me for 5 minutes, I'll let you see my inherited memories. You'll know I'm telling the truth. Every instinct screamed not to trust him. But I needed to know. I needed to see. I placed my hand over his heart. The world dissolved. Suddenly, I was seeing through the eyes of a 10-year-old boy, standing in a darkened chamber lit by sickly green candles. A woman stood before an altar. My mother, younger than I'd ever imagined her, with ice-blue eyes blazing and dark hair wild around her face. She was magnificent, terrifying,
alive.
If you continue this, you'll corrupt the entire pack structure. Her voice rang with fury and desperate conviction. You're not creating loyalty, Gregor. You're creating slavery. The man before her, Ronan's father, the previous alpha, smiled with cold satisfaction. And who'll stop me? You? A single bond seer against an entire council? Yes. She raised her hands, power crackling around her fingers like lightning. If I must. Movement behind her. Too fast. Too deliberate. A woman with amber eyes and raven hair, Nyx's mother, drove a silver blade between my mother's shoulder blades. My mother gasped, her knees buckling. But even as she fell, her eyes found the boy in the corner, young Ronan, tears streaming down his face, held in place by his father's iron grip on his shoulder. Protect my daughter, my mother whispered, blood staining her lips. She is the key to everything. Then her eyes went dark, and I felt the exact moment her life extinguished like a candle in the wind. I broke the connection violently, stumbling backward, my face wet with tears I didn't remember shedding. The grief was a living thing in my chest, 23 years of stolen mourning crashing through me all at once. She was murdered. The words tasted like ash, because she tried to save the pack. And they told everyone I killed her. When I looked up at Ronan, I expected to see the cold calculation of an alpha who just revealed his strategic advantage. Instead, I saw tears tracking down his scarred face. My father made me watch, he whispered, his voice breaking. He wanted me to understand that power requires sacrifice. That mercy is weakness. I was 10 years old, and he made me complicit in her murder. His hands clenched into fists. That's when I swore that if I ever became alpha, I would find your mother's daughter and make this right. Whatever it took, whatever it cost. The silence between us was heavy with shared trauma and impossible choices. Finally, I spoke. My father. The note said he's alive. Yes. Ronan met my eyes. And if he's breaking silence now, it means he knows you've awakened. Which means everyone else will know soon too. Chapter 6. The Dying Alpha. I looked at Ronan with new eyes. Not the alpha who had claimed me, but the boy who had been forced to watch my mother die. The man who had carried that guilt for 23 years, waiting for a chance at redemption he might never deserve. There's something else you need to know. He moved to the window, his broad shoulders tense. The force bond my father used, it didn't just corrupt the pack. It's killing me. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I was only beginning to understand. What do you mean, killing you? The artificial bond is unraveling. Has been for years. He turned to face me, and I saw exhaustion carved into every line of his face. I have seizures, blackouts, moments where I lose control of my wolf and can't remember what I've done. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I have 6 months, maybe less. I need you to break the false bond before I lose my mind completely and slaughter my own pack. The weight of it crashed over me. That's why you chose me. Not because you wanted to protect me. Because you needed me. Yes. He didn't flinch from the accusation in my tone. I recognized what you were the moment I caught your scent at the ceremony. I knew you were the only one who could save me. Save all of us. Anger flared hot in my chest. Why didn't you tell me from the beginning? Why the lies, the protection, Would you have believed me? He challenged, taking a step closer. If the alpha who claimed you during the ceremony, the son of your mother's murderer, had immediately told you he needed your help to break a dark magic bond, would you have trusted a single word I said? Or would you have thought it was another trap designed to control the cursed girl? I wanted to argue, but couldn't. He was right. I would have assumed manipulation, conspiracy, Another way for the powerful to use the powerless. So what now? I asked, my voice hollow. You've told me the truth. I know what you need. That doesn't mean I'll help you. I know. He met my eyes steadily. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. You could disappear into the Whispering Woods, find your father, build a life away from all of this. The pack that tortured you, the alpha who used you, you owe us nothing. It should have been an easy choice. Walk away from the people who had made my existence a living nightmare. Let the corrupt system collapse under the weight of its own sins. But then I thought of the kitchen servant who sometimes saved me extra bread. The elder who had once smiled at me like I was a person, not a curse. The children who didn't yet understand that they were supposed to fear me. All of them trapped in a pack structure rotting from the inside, bound by magic that would eventually consume them all. If I do this, I said slowly, if I help you break this bond, you're going to help me find my father. You're going to tell me everything you know about bondseers, about my mother, about what I'm truly capable of. No more secrets. No more manipulation.
Deal.
He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I took it. His grip was warm, solid, and I felt the ghost of the pack bond between us, fragile and new, but real. That night, exhaustion pulled me under like a riptide. But the dream that came was unlike any I'd experienced before. I stood in the Whispering Woods, moonlight filtering through ancient trees, and a man emerged from the shadows. He had my ice-blue eyes, my pale skin, my mother's dark hair streaked with silver. Soon, daughter. His voice was rough with emotion and years of silence. When you're ready, I'll come for you. But first, you must survive what's coming. Wait. I reached for him, but he was already fading like smoke. Your mother would be so proud of what you're becoming. I jolted awake to the sound of howls, dozens of them, converging on our territory from the east. Ronan was already at the window, his body tense. The Shadowfang clan, he said, his voice cold with recognition. They've breached the border. And I knew, with the certainty that came from my awakening power, that they were coming for me. Chapter 7. The Shadowfang Threat. The attack came with brutal efficiency. Shadowfang warriors poured across our eastern border like a dark tide, their howls splitting the night as they tore through our outer defenses. I watched from Ronan's window as torches ignited across the settlement, alarm bells clanging in frantic rhythm. A voice boomed across the battlefield, amplified by Alpha Command to carry to every corner of our territory. Ronan Stormclaw, I am Kale Shadowfang, and I claim what is mine by right of discovery. Send out the Bondseer, and we withdraw. Refuse, and we paint your stones with pack blood. The Bondseer belongs to whoever claims her first, Kale continued, his words dripping with contempt. Your claim is illegitimate, made in ignorance, not intention. She is wasted on a dying alpha and a corrupted pack. Give her to me, and I will spare your people this slaughter. Ronan's response was a roar that shook the lodge foundations. Come and take her, Shadowfang, if you dare. The battle erupted in earnest. I watched Ronan shift mid-leap from the window, his massive black wolf form crashing into the fray with devastating force. Despite his deteriorating condition, he fought like a storm given flesh, all teeth and fury and desperate protection. Even Nyx joined the defense, her gray wolf cutting through enemy ranks with lethal precision. Whatever hatred she held for me, her loyalty to the pack itself remained absolute.
Inside now.
2 guards, Marcus and Thea, warriors I barely knew, pushed me deeper into the Alpha's chambers. We defend this door with our lives. Nothing gets through. But something did. The guard who entered wore Marcus's face, carried his scent, moved with his gait. But when I looked at him with my awakening senses, I saw the wrongness immediately. A stolen identity worn like a costume, the pack bond connection too thin, too false. Marcus smiled as he drew a silver blade. The Shadow Fang Alpha sends his regards, Bon Seer. He lunged. I threw my hands up instinctively, and power exploded from my core. But this time, I didn't just push him back. I reached for the thread connecting him to his pack, that invisible bond that made him part of something larger, and I pulled.
Hard.
The thread snapped. The infiltrator's scream was inhuman, a sound of such profound loss and agony that it froze the blood in my veins. He collapsed, convulsing, his eyes rolling back as foam gathered at his lips. Within seconds, he had devolved from a cunning warrior to a rabid, mindless shell, all strategy and humanity stripped away, leaving only base animal instinct and pain. Thea burst through the door, saw what I'd done, and her face went pale. Moon's mercy. You severed his bond completely. I stare at my hands, trembling violently. I didn't mean to, I just wanted to stop him. You destroyed him. Her voice wasn't accusatory, just stunned. Bon Seers can kill with a thought. The sounds of battle were fading outside, the Shadow Fang forces retreating under Ronan's ferocious counterassault. But the victory felt hollow as I looked at the broken thing that had been a living wolf moments before. This was what I was capable of. Not just sensing bonds or strengthening them, but severing them entirely. Reducing sentient beings to rabid husks. Ronan returned, bloodied but alive, and took in the scene with a single sweeping glance. His expression was unreadable as he looked from the convulsing wolf to me. Before he could speak, Kale Shadowfang's voice carried one final time across the battlefield, not shouted in anger, but spoken with chilling certainty. The Bon Seer has awakened. Every pack in the realm will come for her now, Stormclaw. Some to claim her, others to kill her, but all will come. His laughter was dark and knowing. You cannot protect her from the world. No one can. The howls of the retreating Shadow Fang clan faded into the distance, but his words echoed long after they were gone. Ronan's eyes met mine, and I saw the truth reflected there. Everything had just changed. I wasn't just the cursed girl anymore, or even the secret Bon Seer. I was a weapon every alpha in the realm would kill to possess, or destroy. Chapter 8. The Challenge of Blood. We buried 7 wolves at dawn. 3 from the outer guard, 2 warriors who had fought at Ronan's side for years, and 2 civilians caught in the crossfire when the Shadow Fang forces breached the settlement. The pyres burned as Elder Thanes spoke the traditional words of passage, smoke rising toward a sky still stained with blood and ash. I stood at the back of the gathering, apart from the mourners, my presence a reminder of why they had died. Some cast glances of hatred my way. Others looked at me with something worse. Fear. When the last ember faded, Nyx Ravenshade stepped forward into the ceremonial circle, her voice ringing clear and cold across the assembly. I invoke the ancient law of the challenge of blood. A collective gasp rippled through the pack. Even Ronan went still, tension radiating from his frame. A Luna who cannot defend herself is no Luna at all, Nyx continued, her amber eyes fixed on me with predatory focus. I challenge Jean Frostmere to ritual combat. Let the pack witness whether she is worthy to stand as our alpha's mate, or whether she is merely a curse hiding behind his protection. The pack erupted, not in protest, but in approval. Even those who had shown me pity nodded in agreement. This was the law, ancient and absolute, carved into the very foundation of pack structure. She is under my protection. Ronan's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. I will not allow. Even you cannot override the challenge of blood, Alpha. Elder Thanes stepped forward, his weathered face impassive. The law predates your bloodline. It predates all bloodlines. She must accept, or be cast out as unworthy. Ronan turned to me, conflict warring in his golden eyes. We both knew the truth. I had never shifted successfully, never managed the transformation that defined our kind. In combat against Nyx's massive wolf form, I would be torn apart in seconds. I accept, I heard myself say, my voice steadier than I felt. The pack formed a circle, their bodies creating an arena from which there would be no escape. Nyx smiled, not with triumph, but with the cold satisfaction of an execution finally being carried out. Ronan appeared at my side for one brief moment, his lips close to my ear. Trust your power. You don't need to shift like we do. Then he was gone, forced back to the circle's edge by tradition and law. Nyx shifted. Her transformation was brutal poetry, bones realigning, for erupting, humanity melting away to reveal the predator beneath. Her wolf form was magnificent, gray as storm clouds, easily twice my human weight, with amber eyes that promised violence. I stood alone in the circle's center, trembling but refusing to run. If I was going to die, it would be on my feet, facing my executioner. Nyx lunged. Power exploded from my core like a star-going supernova. The pack bond, invisible to normal wolves, became suddenly, brilliantly visible. Silver threads erupted into existence, connecting every wolf in the circle in an intricate web of light and energy. I could see them all, feel them all, each connection pulsing with life and loyalty and fear. And Nyx's thread, blazing bright as she hurtled toward me, was within my grasp. I pulled. Nyx froze mid-leap, her massive body suspended in the air by invisible force. Her eyes went wide with shock and terror as she hung there, helpless, every muscle straining against the power that held her immobile. The pack saw me then, really saw me for the first time. Ice blue energy crackled around my body like lightning. My eyes glowed with inner light. My pale skin seemed to shine from within, and the silver threads of the pack bond danced at my fingertips like puppets on strings. I released Nyx. She crashed to the ground hard, unable to move, her wolf form trembling with the aftershock of having her very essence gripped and controlled by another. I don't want to hurt you, I said, my voice carrying across the silent circle with unnatural clarity. But I won't die for your pride. For one eternal moment, the pack stood frozen in collective shock. Then Elder Thane rose, his face twisted with rage and terror. Abomination. His voice cracked with the weight of his fear. She is everything the ancient texts warned us about. She must be destroyed before she enslaves us all. Half the pack surged forward, wolves shifting and snarling, convinced I was the monster about to devour their freedom. The other half moved to form a protective circle around me, Ronan at their center, his massive black wolf form a wall between me and death. Civil war hung in the balance, one heartbeat away from tearing the Iron Peak pack apart forever. And I stood at the center of it all, power still crackling around my hands, wondering if saving myself had just doomed everyone I'd sworn to protect. Chapter 9. The Truth Unbound. Ronan's roar shattered the moment before violence erupted. The alpha command in it was absolute, primal, forcing every wolf to freeze mid-lunge. Hold. The pack wavered, caught between ancient instinct to obey their alpha and the terror of what I represented. Ronan's control was fraying. I could feel it through the bond, the artificial magic eating away at his authority with each passing second. So I stepped forward, power still crackling around my hands, and spoke with a voice that carried the weight of 23 years of silence finally breaking. You want to know why you fear me? because I can show you the truth." Before Elder Thane could protest, I reached into the pack bond and found his thread, thick and corrupt, pulsing with decades of lies and manipulation. I grabbed it and pulled, not to sever but to expose. His memories flooded outward through the bond, visible to every wolf in the circle. They saw through his eyes. The conspiracy hatched in darkness, the decision to eliminate my mother before she could expose their crimes. They felt his satisfaction as Nyx's mother drove the silver blade home. They witnessed decades of forced bonds, artificial loyalty, wolves manipulated and controlled like puppets dancing on invisible strings. "You have no right," Thane screamed, his composure finally shattering. "This is a violation. This is. You've violated my mother." I cut through his protests with ice in my voice. "You've violated this pack. You've violated the sacred bond itself, the very thing that makes us more than rabid animals. And you did it for power, for control, for the sick pleasure of playing God with other people's lives." The pack recoiled from Thane as if he'd become diseased. The other council members who had participated in the conspiracy tried to flee, but warriors seized them, fury replacing the fear that had driven them moments before. Ronan stood silent, seeing for the first time the full extent of his father's crimes. Not just my mother's murder, but hundreds of manipulated bonds, generations of wolves robbed of their free will. His expression was devastated, but when his eyes met mine, he gave a single nod of support. The pack surged toward Thane and his co-conspirators, demands for justice rising like a howl. And that's when Nyx struck. She had shifted back to human form, and in her hand gleamed a silver blade, ancient, stained with old blood. The same blade that had killed my mother. "If I can't be Luna, no one will." She tackled me from behind, the blade arcing toward my throat. Power exploded from me instinctively, but this time, I didn't sever her bond. I reached deeper, past the surface connection to the pack, past her natural wolf essence, to the artificial threads that had been woven into her soul since childhood. Her mother's toxic ambitions, the council's manipulation, the forced loyalty to a corrupt system that had groomed her to be a weapon rather than a person. I severed those threads. Nyx collapsed, the blade clattering from her hands as she crashed to the ground beside me. But she wasn't broken like the Shadow Fong infiltrator had been. She was whole, maybe for the first time in her life. Tears streamed down her face as decades of imposed expectations shattered, leaving behind raw, confused humanity. "What did you do to me?" she gasped between sobs. "I feel empty.
Free.
I don't know who I am without. You get to choose now," I said softly, kneeling beside her. "No one controlling you. No one telling you who you have to be. Just you making your own decisions." The rage in her amber eyes flickered, replaced by something that might have been gratitude, or terror, or both. Order slowly returned to the circle. Thane and his conspirators were dragged away, their fate to be decided by a pack no longer under their control. Wolves who had been ready to tear me apart moments before now looked at me with confusion and cautious respect. Then a hush fell over the gathering, different from before, charged with recognition rather than fear. A figure emerged from the tree line. He was tall and grizzled, with scars mapping a lifetime of survival across his weathered face. His hair was dark streaked with silver, and his eyes ice blue, identical to mine, held depths of pain and love and fierce protection. The pack parted instinctively as he walked toward the circle, his presence ancient and wild in a way that made even Ronan's alpha authority seem young and untested. I knew before he spoke, knew with the certainty of blood calling to blood. "Hello, daughter." His voice was rough with 23 years of silence and longing. I believe we have much to discuss. Chapter 10. The New Luna. My father's name was Aldrich Frostmere, and for 23 years he had lived in the shadows of the Whispering Woods, watching his daughter suffer from a distance he could never close. I've been there for every moment, he told me as we sat in Ronan's chambers, his ice-blue eyes, so like mine, bright with unshed tears. Every taunt, every cruelty, every night you cried yourself to sleep believing you were cursed. It nearly killed me not to intervene. But I had to wait until you awakened, or they would have destroyed us both. He was the last surviving male Bonseer, and he had gone into hiding the night my mother died, knowing that showing himself would only paint a larger target on my back. Now I can teach you what your mother never had the chance to. He took my hands in his weathered ones. How to break the false bond killing your alpha. The ritual was dangerous. More than dangerous. I would have to enter Ronan's mind completely, navigate the landscape of his consciousness, and unravel the dark magic thread by thread without severing anything natural or essential. One mistake would kill him, or trap me in his mind forever, both of us lost to madness. He gave me a chance when no one else would, I said, meeting my father's concerned gaze. I won't let him die. The pack gathered at sunset, forming a protective circle around the ceremonial stones where Ronan and I sat facing each other. His golden eyes held mine, trust and fear mingling in their depths. Whatever you see in there, he said quietly, remember that I chose to be different. That has to count for something. I placed my hands over his heart and opened myself completely to the bond. His mind was a battlefield. Memories crashed over me like waves. His father's cruelty, his mother's abandonment, the weight of leadership thrust upon him too young. And threading through it all, black and writhing like diseased roots, was the false bond his father had forged. It pulsed with corrupt magic, digging tendrils deep into Ronan's essence, slowly consuming everything that made him himself. I began to pull it apart, carefully unraveling each thread. But the dark magic fought back, showing me visions designed to break my resolve. Ronan losing control, slaughtering innocent pack members, becoming the monster his father had been. You are not your father. I spoke into the darkness, my voice echoing through his consciousness. You chose differently. You protected me when you could have used me. You told me the truth when you could have manipulated me. That's why you're worth saving. The false bond shattered like glass. Ronan's body convulsed in the physical world, his back arching, a scream tearing from his throat. For one terrible, eternal moment, he went completely still, and I thought I'd killed him. Then his eyes opened, golden and clear, no longer clouded by the corruption that had been eating him alive. I can feel it, he breathed, wonder transforming his scarred face. The true bond.
Not forced.
Not corrupted. Just real. The pack erupted in howls of celebration and relief. In the days that followed, we rebuilt. Thane and his co-conspirators were exiled, sent into the wilderness to survive without pack or bond. Nyx chose to leave as well, no longer the ambitious beta, but simply a woman trying to discover who she was without the weight of others' expectations. When the pack gathered for my formal recognition as Luna, I stood on the ceremonial platform, no longer the invisible servant, but the woman who had changed everything. Ronan's hand found mine, and the touch was no longer about possession or protection, but partnership. Equals standing together. My father stood beside us, ready to help me master abilities I was only beginning to understand. I looked out at the assembled wolves, some still uncertain, some openly celebrating, all of them free for the first time in generations. We've lived under false bonds long enough, I said, my voice carrying across the ceremonial grounds. From now on, Every wolf here chooses their place. No one is forced. No one is cursed. We're all free. The pack howled, not in forced obedience, but in genuine celebration. The sound rose toward the stars like a prayer, like a promise, like the beginning of something new. And for the first time in my life, standing beside the alpha who had chosen me and the father who had never stopped protecting me, I smiled without fear. The Frostborn curse was dead. Jean Frostmere, Luna of the Iron Peak Pack, was finally, truly alive. Thank you for watching the story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So, do check it out.